Alright boys, sounds like it's time to make another standard tier list. This time English format, covering all the way to Twinkle Melodies, the Bermuda set. We're not including clan selection because not everything is released yet. So basically we've cut the tier list, well, we've made it bigger actually, because usually I make very lame tier lists where it's just like good, bad, and the ugly. This time we've gone a lot, right? Because there's more decks released, more cards, more builds. Each clan now might have more than one kind of strong build, so we just have to separate. Like this A tier, this tier 2, whatever you like to call it, it's just grown so much. I have to actually make it more fine. You know, there's slightly better A tier decks, so it's like an A plus now. And yeah, so we had to separate that a bit. Basically, we're doing everything from next stage set onwards as well, because pretty much no one cares about sets before that, I guess. Like, no one cares about that, so that's it. Now, how we're separating it is just S is the top tier decks, and then A plus and A is something I would take to a big tournament if I have to, and then B is kind of like in the locals level, where, you know, it's not as consistent as your top tier decks or your good decks, but, you know, if I go to casuals, I'd be happy to take it. And then C is pretty much, yeah, probably just play casually with D. D's just not very good. And then F is just fail. Like, really bad deck right now. I wouldn't. It's painful playing it. It's painful playing it. Now, quick discussion on the format. Right now, it's how fast you can kill Gurguit. Deck is the format's revolving around how strong is your turn 3. Gurguit kills on turn 4, so you got to do devastating damage, like Call of Duty, right? You know, TTK, time to kill has to be really, really high. Gurguit consistently deals with you at turn 4. And has a pretty strong turn 3 as well. So you have to be fast on that. The faster you are, or the better yet at surviving this kill turn, means your deck is likely gonna be higher. And if not, maybe you're missing PRs, then sorry boys, you're going down. So let's start off. First thing we can talk about is Asha. This is an automatic F tier deck. Fortunately, when it got released, it was already a gimmicky deck that wasn't as good as other, like, Tri-3 decks. And it's only gotten worse because it's gotten 0 support. It did get a PR, and I think out of all the Tri-3 PRs, it was the worst PR out of all of them as well. So yeah, no support. Gotta wait to clan selection that hopefully revives the clan, but otherwise, sorry boys, your Asha is just here at F. But let's talk about the best deck in the format, which is no surprise at all. It is Gurguit. I think we talked about it just then. S for spoilers. Yeah, Gurguit is the best deck in the format as well. It's consistent. It consistently kills your opponent. It has great offensive power. There's lots of attacks. On the highest chance to get hit next restriction list. I surprisingly didn't want to hit it this set. This restriction list, I mean, which I think was wrong, because as we see now, it's just everywhere. You see it everywhere. It's golden time. All right, golden time. So it is at the top of S tier, and basically your deck has to revolve around, can you beat a Gurguit or not? One deck that definitely can't is an Ultima. So this is one of the decks. The clans, Royal Paladin has lots of builds going for it. Ultima was the Tri-3 build. It unfortunately hasn't really done much. You know, MLB I think is better. SGD got more cards. Unfortunately in English we don't have the PR yet, so that's tough. That's tough. Having the PR means we have Ultima does get a bit better. Maybe it goes up to C, maybe even B if you wanted to. But right now, without the PR, the only thing you're better at doing, or the only deck you're better than, is Asha. So see you in the D tier section, boys. Unj, kind of just really decent, I guess. Really consistent, gains a huge amount of hands. Anj Tyria is the thing that we're talking about, but Anj is basically splashable in other decks as well. So it's like pretty much A+, right? I think it's slightly too slow against the current like S tier deck, but basically against everything else, it is quite good. It will pretty much trounce them. So I think it's a definite A+, nice and consistent as well. So yeah, Anger Blader, so recently gotten taken off the list. The format has moved on. I don't really think this is something I would want to take to a big tournament as well. Maybe casuals, I'll be happy to take it to. I definitely think it'll stomp basically everything else. But all the newer stuff, they've got better advantage engines, better card quality than Anger Blader. So to the B tier it goes. Genesis, so this is the Astral Port build. Exclusively Astral Port. I think it's quite strong. In terms of consistency, I'm a bit worried about it simply because your 1s and 2s are basically very inconsistent, very low amounts, heavy grade 3 count. But the thing is, your grade 3 turn can be really, really strong. So I think a lot of top players have been saying Astroport is better than the other Genesis builds. So I kind of agree. Although it's a very linear playstyle, you still make massive columns, massive annoying columns, PG or die pretty much. So I think it deserves sitting around somewhere in the A+ section. Yeah, so it's pretty good. Big Belly. I think Big Belly is inferior in standard. It's just not as good as Isabel. Isabel's better. So probably Isabel is probably sitting around, I think, in B. Again, spoilers, sorry. So I'm gonna put Big Belly in C. Alright, it's a premium deck. If you like Big Belly, go to premium. In standard, you got Isabel, and I think that is slightly better. So Big Belly probably in C is where it sits for now. Same thing with Blade Master. Blade Master, just the format's moved on, boys. If you want to play Blade Master, go to premium. Premium is basically Blade Master, except your token gets restanding capabilities when you trigger a stand, right? So if you're a Blade Master fan, you should be more excited moving to premium, because your vision token just has more vision. Much more damage. That's where you want to be, right? Transition that deck. That deck's pretty much standard anyway, so I think the only thing you need is like vanilla Dohas, and so yeah, easy deck. But right now in standard, I don't think it's that great. Field wipe, everyone gets field wipe now. So what are you gonna field wipe, dude? Right? What are you gonna field wipe? No one cares about field wipes. They build a free board anyway. Blouse is a nice Nova build right now. Put it in B. I think it's a nice casual locals deck, budget deck as well. So great starting point for anyone who wants to play Vanguard, and you want to play with cool looking robots. These robots are actually cool in Dimension, please. I said it, boys. I said it. Normally, Dimension Please has the superior looking robots, but Blouse is like on a different tier. If we were to rate robot tiers, Blouse is like the toppest of the top. So, yeah, cool aesthetics. The cross used to be like here, right? Because it's just great solitaire deck that you don't really have to worry about what your opponent's playing, just one more combo. But there are better solitaire decks now, so this slightly goes down. There's more consistent solitaire decks in my opinion. So yeah, I think it goes to A. It definitely is not here. It's gonna destroy everything else, but a lower A is where it's at. Dimension Police. There is Wombo Combo Dimension Police, but overall I think Dimension Police is somewhere below the locals tier, or maybe it is a local tier. Oh, I think that's probably giving it a bit too much credit. I think below local tier is where it's at. It does have the Wombo Combo. It did show like one result, but it's like one result out of many. But after playing, like, there's just so much out there that is better, right? There's so much out there that's better, especially since we've moved past Luard. Another big jump over Luard meta. So, yeah, I think it drops down because of that. Fenrir. So this basically represents every single Genesis deck that is not Astral Poet. Basically, I think Yggdrasil probably should have been better, because, you know, everything runs Yggdrasil. I think Fenrir or just normal Genesis is also in the A+ tier. Or maybe it's A. Probably A+. The ordering has to change though. I don't think it's on this. I don't think it's near Astroports. I think it's probably somewhere a bit lower here. But we'll establish that tier a bit more. Full Bronto is definitely somewhere high on the A+ tier though. It just has some really nice matchups. Like against Luard, you snipe all their really important grade 1s and they can never get back. Against something like Melody, getting rid of the melodies that are annoying. Although sure, they can suck it all in Plon now, but you know, getting rid of these key cards is really annoying. And then just overall, hard to damage deny, because it's just a lot of its cards don't really care about damage deny or not, and then just decent hand size surprising. So full Bronto, high A somewhere, and we'll talk about that later. Touch Kaze. So Touch Kaze probably should be like an F. All right, it should be an F, but I wouldn't. Although I don't really like current Gaia builds, like this is specifically Gaia. There is another Touch Kaze build, which is Anger Blader. It's just not very good, right? It's like last year's deck. This is probably like in D somewhere, hanging out with everything that got released early. So yeah, I think that's about right for Gaia. Gavriel, I think, is the strongest A+ today, no question, right? Better the cross pretty much. Can't damage deny it because it can just easily create up. You have to keep it at 0 for a chance not to die, and even at 0 you have a good chance for them to go to 3 damage. via just manipulating their damage. Like at 0 they can do something like a no seal, grade 3 no seal into like a Gabriel to get 2 damage and another no seal, or even like a Soul Blast 1, deal 1 damage, something like that. Something you can go from 0 to 3 and then hammer your opponent. So damage deny doesn't really work well against it, unless their hand is bad. But then also like just overall, it's just it can damage deny you, cock out a lot of decks from playing the game at all, and then just one shot. So it's just good. It's the best. Surprisingly, it's the best A+ tier deck in my opinion, and just very toxic. It's a very toxic. The playstyle is super toxic. I've talked about Ghidorah before. Every time I play Ghidorah, it drops a tier because I feel really. It's just so clunky. Mega Colony just feels awful. So I've stopped playing the deck, and so it's sitting somewhere like here, C and D. I think it's like D, just because your matchups are really terrible now as well. Basically, everything can beat you. Your Cradle Markers don't do enough. Your multi-attack sucks. Your power lines are terrible. Your only good thing is like Sticky Bolus, but every other clans get like better Sticky Boluses, you know? So, overall, Mega Colony in a terrible position. Clan selection might change that. Might need to test that, but overall, yeah, Mega Colony, terrible. Harry! So, Harry definitely dropped in power. I'm not sure if I want to take Harry to a locals anymore, but I feel bad putting it in C. So I think it's like a low B. There is a lot of other Butterfly and Moonlight sets that I would definitely take over Harry all the time. So I think low B is probably correct. Isabel, I think Isabel used to be like an A tier deck. But because we don't get the PR in English, and you're facing a lot of, like, Gabriel is this annoying matchup that damage denies you and basically shuts down your entire deck, it kind of goes to B. I play at locals, but, you know, in a big tournament, there are definitely a lot more better choices to take. So, yeah, casual deck. Lambros, Thavis, we don't get Pursuit Assault. That is a huge blow to the deck. I would play other Aquaforce builds over Thavis or Lambros. So I think it goes to lower than casualty. If I want to go to casuals, don't get me wrong, right? Just by the fact that it gets released later, it gets better card quality overall. It is better than a lot of these other clans, but there are better decks out there. There are better decks out there, right? Luard used to be the king of S, now is pretty much A+. It has, there are, like, Power Creep and Divine Lightning Radiance was so high, basically every single deck from there is really good. And that just means more competition for Luard. And with Luard, you have bad matchups now. Gabriel can really shut you down. Your counter blast, you have to be really, really careful. But at the same time, how careful can you be? And then against something like Vanquisher, not great times. Not a free matchup. Everything else, like big force decks, you're usually playing like around a 50-50 force matchup. But sometimes even worse. And then Gurgit, like Gurgit, dude, it shuts you down pretty hard. So I think it's still a strong deck. It is gonna stomp basically everything else in the formats. But the A+ deck's definitely gonna give you a run for your money. Some of the A ones do as well, like the Cross, and it did. Remember WGP? So yeah, it still sits somewhere in A+, and definitely not as dominating as it was before. Now, Lupina, right? So this Lupina I'm specifically going to talk about is Lupina Melody. I think it is an S tier deck. Now, you're going to say, where are the results, Kai? I'm going to tell you, we don't need results. We've tested it. I think it's definitely really strong. And since I'm making the tier list, I get to decide where it goes. So it goes to S. And yeah, people haven't really... I think this is definitely a sleeper deck. People haven't picked up on it. People are just... It's been, it's the third week of a video now, so people have just been playing a bunch of, like, standard stuff, but not really much big tournaments that you need to be worried about. So... a lot of people are just going to go to Gurgit. It's tried and tested deck, while Lupina Melody, slightly less consistent in my opinion, but definitely can destroy Gurgit at the turn 3 turn, make those devastating columns, big power, and just destroy everything. Right? Everything. So I definitely think it's an S tier deck. You guys can disagree and make your own list and show me what you think Lupina should go, but every Lupina list I've seen so far from Japan has just been very low power and not the correct build in my opinion. Maelstrom. So this is the Aquaforce build that is good in English, or better than the Lambros in English. I think it's a locals deck. You can take it to locals and not feel bad. Glory is just really badly designed mechanic that's still super toxic but works very well. So yeah, now it gets extra drive checks, right? So even more high rolling. Mir is definitely too slow for the format, and overall I don't think it's an A tier. It's A tier is A plus tier is super competitive. I think it's like A, just because the heal is nice, but against these decks the heal doesn't matter, right? Because they can punish you super hard. But then against everything else here, against like B and lower, the heal and the power and the scaling power is pretty good. So it's like an A tier deck, I think. It may be high B, but I think it's A tier. Messiahs used to be pretty decent. Now, not so decent. They're too slow in my opinion. I don't think they're C. I think they're probably D, which is unfortunate. We're not getting the PR, which makes the deck overall more quicker, faster, and more powerful. But yeah, so because of that, no future for Messiah, unfortunately. It sits in D. So MLB, really easy deck to get into, and I think it used to be a locals deck, right? It used to be a locals deck, but again, power creep has continued. It probably drops down to this. I probably want to take this to locals. This SGD, dude, right? Royal's got SGD, right? We got Daigo, right? We got Daigo. Daigo is probably better than MLB, so yeah, we'll talk about Daigo soon. But MLB, easy deck to get into. It's probably on discount right now, and I think it can hang with these boys, but against high tier decks, it probably has some problems. Gear Chronicle, we don't have the PR yet. That's coming out in clan selection. Ribble. So would I take this to locals right now? Probably not. It's probably here though. When Ribble comes out, it probably becomes somewhere like here. That just shows you how good the PR is. So without the PR, it's just like it's just normal standing force deck, right? Night Rose. I like Night Rose. I probably still would take Night Rose to a locals. It's nice and consistent. It's a bit slower now. The format isn't really built for Night Rose, but overall, it's just with Navigator, it's consistent. Gets like a relatively big turn 3 push, but when you compare it to everything else, it's still in that turn 4 kill range, which makes it compete with basically every single deck in the format, and just doesn't generate as much stuff as the other decks. So I think it's a locals deck. No CL is your aggro multi-attack Angel Feather, and that means you're not playing to like something like Gavriel's strength, right? Gavriel has this unique gimmick where you get so many crits, people get one shot. No Seal doesn't have that gimmick. That gimmick is multi-attack, so basically you can't deny damage, you lose that option. You make a lot of attacks, you get more attacks than every other protect, but you're still not killing at 3, I don't think. The kill at 3 is still a bit out of reach, so it's basically not as consistent as everything else here as well. You're forced to run things like Happy Bell, No CL, extra grade 0s are pretty annoying, so it goes to A. Nubatama, so we are actually getting the PR coming up, so I think Nubatama is a safe A pick, maybe A+, but I'm just putting it A for now, just because overall, we haven't really seen that many results of this, but we're still missing one PR actually, we're missing the grade 2, so that is slightly less consistency than a max JP build, so yeah, okay. That makes sense. It goes to A. PBO. So PBO, this is representing basically every single Shadow Paladin that is not Luar. Right? So we still you have people playing Mordred, you have, Claret Sword, yeah, and PBO itself. Probably wouldn't take it to locals. Or would I? Maybe it is a locals deck. Can it hang with these guys? Probably. Yeah, okay, no. I think every other Shadow build is kind of okay, maybe not Gust Blaster, or maybe so, that it can, actually, if this is here, then I guess Gear Chronicle has to be a locals deck. Alright, so, that's a quick change. We'll change the order later. Plon is one of the few decks that are showing some Bermuda love. Everyone's playing Plon, because one, it's Melody, and Melody is easy. Everyone has a Melody deck, and all you do is plop 4 Plons in, and you're ready to go. We've seen some results of Plon recently, but not much, not much. I think it is too slow. I think it's a slow deck. It relies a lot on cannon, just soul charging a lot of good stuff to be able to start pushing your opponent, but it doesn't change the fact that their grade 3 turn is not as strong as everyone else's, so basically you have a free turn to live. That also means that you're not doing as much damage when you compare it to every other deck. But the thing is, Plon will absolutely smash every deck that doesn't require you to kill at 3. Everything at like A or lower, I think Plon is pretty good against, so I think it still sits at A+. Prism was surprisingly good as well. I think it's an A+ deck. It's just, it never runs out of steam. Sometimes, sure, you brick, but every deck bricks. But the deck itself doesn't run out of steam. You have a lot of slots, because if you're just running a Prism engine, then there's only, what, one of each. You have a Prism of each grade, and that's it. So you can run a lot. You can run the power play of like Lies-a-Lot, Ellie, Aquas. They just normally fit, or you can splash it with anything. Like same with Ange, right? Ange Tyria is the go-to build that people are thinking about, but you can play Ange Prism. You could play like Prism Riviere or something like that. So Prism easily splashable, but also very strong by itself. I think it's an A+, somewhere in the mid A+ section. Reindeer, I think, is just A. It's less consistent just because it's Highlander. If you play Reindeer, you have that terrible situation where you look at your top cards and go, there's no grade 3 or 4. I'm just writing a grade 2. So when that happens, your deck is like junked here, like here. But then when you get the perfect write-off, where you're like Reindeer, like go first, get grade 3, get an Ange or an Ezcar on your first run, you're like, poor dude, I'm winning really hard, so you can be like here, right? So it's a good compromise. It's like an A, less consistent, least consistent Bermuda build, but well, it's got the RNG, if you're into that. Revan, Bluewings Revan specifically, I think is around the same tier as Maelstrom. These two are chilling out in the casual land or locals land. It's like, look, it's one of those high roll decks again. If you get your heal trigger early, you basically steamroll every single other deck in the format. If you don't, then you're just playing a normal Revan deck, and then it feels bad, man. It feels bad. So this with I think Maelstrom is about the same tier. Rising. So Rising used to be a great budget deck. I remember last time put in tier 2. Now tier 2 is huge, and overall power creep has kind of pushed out of tier 2. Lots of force decks to play with that gives the same amount of stuff that Rising can get. So I think it sits around in the casual tier, a locals tier. I mean, definitely beats basically everything here. So I think around in B is correct. Shara I usually put with Night Rose, right? Shara is similar to Night Rose in that they're both very linear decks that just kind of do its thing, and if it can do its thing, it'll win. Thing is, the difference about Shara is that you can low roll pretty hard. People can play around you easier, but at the same time, when you get your high roll cards, when you get a number of terrors, you basically can survive a lot of things. You don't necessarily kill at turn 3. If you get double number of terror, you might be able to deal a lot of damage, but just by having like the number of terrors will draw a lot of cards that will allow you to survive like turn 3 and 4, so the push is not as deadly. And then after that, you do have things that definitely kill your opponent. Hope on Dump in standard basically is GG with 5 attacks. While I guess Skull Dragon is the same thing, but like again, it's about the ceiling of the deck, right? Sharot, that Hope on Dump definitely kills your opponent. So, but yeah, Night Rose overall I think is more consistent. So these two are around the same tier. I definitely, the thing is though, this is a personal bias. I would take a Sharot deck more likely to a tournament than a Night Rose deck, but no bias. I think it sits around at locals tier. SGD I think is locals tier 2. Unfortunately, I just don't see how it's good enough to be at A. Sure, it has a restand, but that's it. The rest of the deck, maybe it gets power, right? It gets power, but these decks get power too. And is it fast enough to kill a Gurgit? I don't think so. Is it fast enough to kill all the other decks? I don't really think so too. So I think it's a local to SGD is a local to deck. Unfortunately, all the Royals feeling bad. Silverthorns, is Silverthorns locals? I don't think it is. I think it's worse than Harry. So is it as bad as these other decks? Maybe it's like the highest of tier C. Yeah, put it there. OTT, OTT versus everything else. It's been power creep pretty hard. All the protect decks. This is like, OTT is literally a worse Gabriel, in every single way right now. In every single way. So it has to be lower than Gabriel, which is not hard. But then I don't think it's beating these other decks very well. So I think C tier is about correct. Victor, why would you play Victor when you can play the superior Blouse, right? I think Blouse is better than Victor, which makes... And Blouse is B, so Victor has to be in C. Simple. And then Yasue. So Yasue recently got the Shiryuki unrestricted. Where does it go, though? It has a devastating grade 3 turn when you pull it off. But if you go second, it doesn't handle going second as well as other decks. But at the same time, it doesn't require Counterblast. It can run crits. It has Shiryuki. I think it's not as consistent. I think it's like a low A+ or a high A. Right. So now that we've got basically everything sorted out, let's do some ordering and rearranging. S tier is correct. Yeah, Lupita is not as good as Gurgit in my opinion, but it definitely can hold its chops and basically beat everything else. High tier A+ should be something like Gabriel. Definitely there. I think Vanquisher is there as well, but not as good as Gabriel. I think we should put like Plon a bit higher. I mean, it showed results. If it snowballs, it's pretty hard. So maybe it's too high. I think Yasui at low tier is correct. This somewhere mid. Astroport and Luard at mid, I think is around correct. Ange Tyria. I think Ange Tyria, Prism, Fenrir. I think they're better than Fenrir, or better than that Genesis build. So I think this is about correct. This is about right. Luard, yeah, Luard is still strong. Luard can basically hold its own against a lot of these decks, I think. So A Cross at the top. Mia should be lower. I think Nubatama should be higher, and then No Seal kind of in the middle, chilling. And yeah, Rainier. I think Rainier is higher than Mia, because if I wanted to bring a deck that could win games, I want to be able to high roll. Mia doesn't really have that high roll opportunity, except you check top deck and double crit. So yeah, all right. I think that's about correct. Then Bs. Let's move some Bs around. B is getting a bit hard, right? B is getting a bit hard. I think Chronojet should be higher. I think Isabel is also pretty high too. He's around the same power lines. I think Harry? No. I think Charlotte should be high as well. Shaharot, Night Rose. Maybe Night Rose is less than Anger Blader. Maybe. Like that? It's getting a bit too fine. Blouse, Harry. I think these are better than Blouse. Blouse should be better than Harry. Or Blouse, I think... No, I think that we're making SGD feel bad, right? This is hard, right? B is not easy. SGD probably should be somewhere here in mid tier, and then the rest of these clans should be here. Yeah, I think that's around correct. I think Blouse could be higher. Blouse is better than these two, I think so. Okay. That's probably correct. C tier, wow, C tier sucks. I think Lambros can beat everything in C, at least because it's new, gets cards. Silverthorn, Big Belly. I don't rate Big Belly very high. Victor that low? Should Victor be that low? Maybe. Nah, Victor should be higher. It at least gets triple drive, right? Victor has the reguards that can restand, so I guess it's kind of better than a lot of other stuff out there. Silverthorn is basically the old deck. I mean, maybe Dementia Police, we can move it up. I think C is just, it's literally whatever. It is literally whatever. I think MLB can hang out with these guys too. Let's just put it here. It's because it's easy to play, gets crit pressure. Probably something like that. They're about the same. They're about the same. They're about the same. And yeah, this probably is. Yeah, okay. This kind of beats it. Susanoo kind of can beat MLB though. Just a 3 attacker deck, but it's got terrible matchups otherwise. Then D. Unfortunately, this should be lower. Blade Master. I do Blade Master and Messiah. What are we doing in this? I think Ultimal should be lower. Ghidorah probably slightly higher here because it can, at least it beats these clans. Maybe it's something like this. I think it's something like this. And then lastly, we've got Asha. So I think what we can see is that after Bermuda gets released, there was just so much decks in the A land that are kind of decent. So especially the A+ decks. The A+ decks, they can definitely compete with the S tier guys. So yeah, lots of diversity because going first is so strong. So let me reiterate: S tier is your top decks. A+ and A is decks that I would probably take to a big tournament. I would lean more towards the A+ ones because they're more consistent than the A's. B's is local tier, and then C's is casual tier pretty much, and then D and F is just suffering. It's pain. Alright, that's basically it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with this list or not? Do you hate me for putting Lupina so high? Maybe give your lists in the comments below. And if you like this video, like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.